It is now my pleasure to introduce our speakers for today, Joanna Tivig and Peter Monkhouse. Joanna and Peter are co-founders of New Gen P, a training organization focused on product management, strategy implementation, and execution. They are here to share their insights on how to blend product thinking, technology, and process to achieve agility. So welcome, Joanna and Peter. Now I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Karen. And we're very happy to be here. This is our first time, and I hope you invite us. If we do a good job, you'll call us again. But we are very happy this is a quick talk because this is about agility. So we should be able to finish this on time. So basically, yes, Peter and I, we've started this journey together to create more awareness around product management and product ownership in particular. So we wrote a book, Gen P, and we also partner with different institutions and different organizations to continue our mission. So the first couple of things that we wanted to leave with you, thinking that this is a quick talk. So the first thing would be to look at agility like in the context of business and also the delivery. And then the other thing would be to zoom into product agility and actually find out some of the things that are very important from a product perspective to move organizations forward. So if we can leave you with these two thoughts, I think we accomplish our mission today. So the one thing that we wanted to do, Peter, if you can go to the next slide, was to put agility in the context. So we talk a lot about business agility, and we thought about, kind of defining what that business agility is. And we have organizations having that business agility as their main thing from a strategy perspective. But when it comes to executing that, or when it comes to understanding, it's very hard for them to do it. So we kind of started with Steve Denning's 3 laws: the law of the network, the law of the customer, and the law of the small team. And we navigated around that to figure out what would be the 3 main components of business agility. And the one component is the team, their engagement, of course, velocity. We keep talking a lot about that. And then the other component is the entire organization. And when we think about the organization, we think about not only their structure, but also the leadership and the culture there and how they put together their strategy. And then the third one would be the product or the value delivery. And also going back to the customer, because the one thing that we keep talking about and navigate from a value perspective is our customer. Do you want to add anything, Peter?
No, it's just excellent. And it's from a business point of view, to be agile, all of these have to work together. If you have one that isn't, then the organization will become locked. There's the talk about how culture will eat strategy for breakfast. So it's all very well to have a very agile strategy, but if your organization, the governance and the culture won't allow you to be agile, then you're going to have problems. But Joanna, let's go on now and find out about what people think about product agility. So what we thought we would do, just for a little bit different, is use the Mentimeter poll. So if you can either just put your phone up to the QR code to activate Mentimeter, or click on that link, which is going to be hard to do because it's got lots of wonderful characters in it. Or if you have the Mentimeter app, or go to the Mentimeter website, just key in the number 3558691. And we want you to add in 3 words about what is what you think product agility is. So if I switch to the next screen, right, we'll get a word map coming up here as you start typing in your words. The code is at the top if you need it. So this is a chance for be interactive. Let's see what you come up with in terms of the words. Always nervous here. We wait for the first person to be brave and venture in and see what you're going to do.
Be creative.
Yeah, be creative. Got one person in. Excellent. So when we think about agility, what are we thinking about? Oh, that's an
Delight. Cool.
interesting word. Not one that came to my mind, but that's okay. That's why we're doing this. Yes, speed, right? Speed shows up all the time. Time to market. Yeah. Yeah. Flexible, change. Don't feel you have to come up with new words. You can reuse words that are there. Gets more fun the more people put in. So thank you for those who've already added words in. Some nice ones: responsiveness, adaptability, usability.
I like the buzzword.
Full cycle. That's an interesting idea. I think that's something we definitely sometimes lose sight of when we look about a product, just delivering the product to the customer, as opposed to thinking about their full life experience, something that Joanna and I talk about in our book, that we have to think about the total customer experience.
Experimentation, another great word.
Yeah. We'll give you another few seconds here. As Karen reminded us, this is a quick talk. So we have a couple more things we want to share with you. A great start. Certainly we're seeing that value. We keep coming back to product agility, talk about being able to deliver value to customers. Okay, well, thank you for this. So we'll continue to move on. We'll actually have another poll right at the end of our quick talk here. So as organizations think about implementing business agility, they generally will focus on three broad areas. So first is to sense the need to do something that's agile, then to respond to that need, and finally to continue to adapt based on feedback. So Joanna, how does this sort of more broad way to implement business agility apply to products?
Right, and I think we have to think about, and somebody said the full life cycle. You have to take this into the context of the full life cycle of your product, because we focus so much on the delivery component or the development of the product or the IT functions that we forget there are all these other functions around it. And it starts with these discussions like, what problem am I trying to solve? As we start new projects, you can see that those discussions follow the solution. They always are discussions around solutions, but not actually what the customer needs. And that will delay the time to market. That would delay all those conversations about business value and the actual purpose of what we're doing this. So maybe in the next slide, Peter, what we put together, maybe this will resonate with you, because we all want to get feedback from you in terms of what you think about this. But what we thought was to put together that entire life cycle from a product perspective. And you can see you have we have couple of loops there in terms of the first one would be that market validation, that sometimes organizations continue to do that market validation for several iterations until they find that their product actually is a good fit. We had a great example in our book about Zappos, and Zappos was doing that. They were actually trying the market for a period of time until they figured out what they were going to do. And then when they got a lot of customer buy-in, they actually got into this more iterative execution. And for them was basically inventory and a wonderful app that they had there. And then in the end, we were thinking that, like once you develop all these iterations, you do have to have maintenance from a product perspective. So in all these areas, from customer problem to the sales exhaustion, or to the point where, you get to that end of life from a product perspective, because Jeff always reminded us that sometimes you have to kill your project or your product if it's not the right one. So from that customer problem to sale exhaustion, you have to show agility there in all those stages. And the most important thing would be to continue to improve and get feedback from customers. So we incorporate in there some feedback loops where you getting the feedback from your customer.
Couldn't agree more, Joanna. I think this idea of that, when we talk about agility, in my mind, this is all for our product. This is always about being able to get feedback and adapting to that feedback in a timely manner. So if we don't build that into our product lifecycle, where we can get feedback and get feedback continuously and take it on board and adapt our project, we're really not being agile. After all, it is the customer that we're looking for and looking for their input on. Okay, so if we just continue on here and look at what product ability is, and we have this idea of build the right thing, build the thing right, and then build the thing fast, right? So this is all, as I mentioned, about this idea of continuous learning. Yes, we start off building something. Remember the MVP concept, minimum viable product. So trying to figure out what the right thing is, right? Then we have to build it fast and then continue to adapt as we go along. This idea of constant evolution.
And this particular image, I took it from a workshop that I had with my business team, and the one of my business teams that I have are very very agile in nature because it's the business that they creating a lot of money for the organization, and they also need to be right there in front of their customers, so they're very engaged. And these are the three things that they told me that for them, that's product agility, and that's what they are trying to achieve. And I thought that was very interesting, feedback to get from them, because they actually understood that it's not just necessary to build the thing right and have that efficiency and process speed, but you do need to think about how to build the right thing, and if it's the right thing for the customer, the right value that they receive. So I thought that this is very appropriate for what we're presenting here.
So let's talk about an example, Joanna.
Yes, this is an example, and we've been following IKEA very closely from an organization perspective. And when I was searching up some of the words, IKEA and product agility, I found some articles, and they were all talking about how IKEA is actually very engaged with their product, and this is what the product agility meant for them. And you can see everything is around the product and the customer. So basically, from listening and learning from the customer to focusing on the product, to design, to manufacture, and also improve. They have an entire sustainability cycle there. It's not just manufacturing, but they are very focused on sustainability and making sure that they are environmental friendly, and they continue to invest a lot on that. Their package and distribution, because they have to be very nimble with packaging and also distribution, especially these days. I think a lot of organizations are doing that. And then also the experience with the customer and how they interact, the different channels they interact. They have an augmented reality application these days where you can go in there and you can actually set up your entire office and see, taking a picture of your room and then putting the furniture there and see how it's looking. So very innovative from that perspective.
They certainly are. But as we come to wrap up here, what do you think of an example?
Sorry, I missed that. Could you say it again?
What I hate it. Speaking about products that are innovative and agile. So what do you think are products that have agility? So again, we'll just flip to the next screen, go to the Mentimeter and type in products that you think that have great agility, examples that you have seen. We've shared IKEA, but what are some of the products you may think about? And then once we get some answers here, we'll then be available for questions for the remaining of our time. And hopefully, Karen, we've got our 15-minute time limit here. Who's going to be venturesome and put in a product? Oh, there we go, the Toronto Public Library. I mean, they certainly, all libraries have had to be very agile. I mean, not only with the changing technology of how they move from books to make things available online, but then having to become virtual. My mother's a librarian, she'd be very pleased. Okay, another great example, Zoom. McDonald's. Interesting. Okay. Android. Lee Valley, one of my favorite stores. You know, and I think what I always enjoy about Lee Valley is how they do listen to their customers, and they seem to always be updating their product line to reflect what customers are what customers want.
They're closing their downtown store, though.
Yeah, that's, well, not that I ever went to their downtown store because it was downtown and I'm not downtown, but.
Talking about agility.
Again, talking about agility, that's not where their customers are, right? Okay, anyone else want to add anything? Okay, well, with that, thank you very much for listening to us, and we'll open up for questions now. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat box, and we'll be more than glad to have a discussion for a few minutes, and thank you.
And I think as we wait for questions, I see one from Tom as well in terms of the, you know, how it relates with the Scrum framework. And I think one of the interesting things that we see is that we are using Scrum as a mechanism for agility, right? So we are using it as a framework. It's a great framework. So it's proven that, you know, it can take you faster to do things, and the iterations are so, and sprints or iterations, they are so beneficial for the product. The one thing that we need to be very careful is not making Scrum the objective for agility, because that's what's happening with some organizations that I've seen, is that they are measuring the Scrum or the sprints, and they are basically thinking that they are agile as long as they are fast, or they're delivering, you know, faster in the sprints. So you can have the best processes like we've seen in waterfall. Like I've seen some good waterfall teams in my past life, and we were measuring and we were getting there. But then the quality of what we were delivering was not good. So we really have to think about quality at the end of the day. So anyone, any questions? Is this a topic that it's live in your heads and in your minds, or is it something that you like to explore? Any comments that you have? Anything that you've seen in your careers? Especially during these times.
There's a question in the chat for you guys.
Yes, have you heard about the move from human-centered design to life-centered design?
I don't know if it's a difference. I mean, I heard about it. I'm not a specialist, but I don't know. Human and life to me are basically the same.
Not wanting to get too philosophical here, but I think if nothing else, what COVID has shown us as we start working more and more from home is the two are intertwined together. And so we need to think about the whole aspect of the person who's using our product, not just with a particular time or for the problem where they're using it, but how does it affect the rest of their life? So I haven't heard about it either, but I certainly like the thought.
And to continue that thought, like I read this morning that a lot of millennials, they are fleeing the big cities in Canada And thinking about that and the change that will create in organizations and how we're doing things. And one of the comment that they had there was that they feel very frustrated joining organizations and not being allowed to do and just be creative, and everybody around like putting stops on their thinking. So that was a comment that I read. So I'm thinking like we really have to be more open with our generation to understand their needs as well. From that agility perspective, if we want to grow our businesses.
Another question here about KPIs, Joanna. Do you have any thoughts of good KPIs from a product ownership perspective? Yes.
Yes. So, I mean, I use KPIs a lot to measure, progress and everything. I am more around OKR, so setting the objective first, understanding what we need. I know it's always hard to measure value. So one of the typical questions that we have from the business team is like, how do you measure value? And of course, when you get into these projects cold, you don't have a value proposition canvas, you don't know who your customer is, writing requirements without knowing who you're writing them for, not having the user there and involved there and requesting, it's very hard to measure that value. So these are the things that basically we focusing on, not just measuring velocity or the how fast we can get the user stories through the process, but actually identifying value and measuring value.
It is so important if you're going to do anything with a product, especially if you're going to try to use a more agile or agility approach to add enhancements, and you've got to have some way to measure whether these are working or not working. Whether you use customer satisfaction score or net promoter score or sales or profitability, they're all, the metric needs to be aligned to what your organization is looking at, how your organization measures success, but it's important to have them. Otherwise, you're just guessing.
Yeah, and look for those pains. I mean, usually customers have pains and they tell us all the time through the reviews, through interactions, through the call centers. They come to us and they say, I hate when I have to do this. We had Ardita talking with us, and she was showing us the Manulife interface. And she mentioned, like how different the different products they have, how different the login page is for all their products. And we hear that, right? We hear all that feedback coming. So how do we address those pains when we hear from our customers? That's where the value will be. For the customers to actually see the changes and see that you have those interfaces aligned and consistent.
Okay, thank you, Dwayne. Another question here. Product agility is the full life cycle. A team does not create a beautiful product just to deliver it and leave it to wither or die over time. You're quite right about that. Okay, so more of a thought here, I guess. You don't have to baby and then set it aside and not care for it. Product needs constant care throughout. Can't agree with you more. And I think certainly in my experience, I've seen many organizations who just do that, who just ignore product. I was going to add, I think it's more prevalent on internal products when they introduce a new system or a new process, they just leave it and let it wither on the vine, as you said. So I think, one of the advantages I see of this agility, as we try to want to show you in the product development lifecycle, the iterative product development lifecycle, is that you've got to constantly think about how to improve your product based on feedback, which is one way to make sure it doesn't die on the vine. Joanna, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I just had recently a discussion with someone who was talking about marketing agility. And one of the examples they had was that they were basically putting together a marketing strategy for a product. And of course, the product was changing, the features were changing, but the marketing strategy didn't change with the product. And this is where, that meant to them that basically they didn't catch up, and then they talk to the wrong people, they campaign to the wrong audience, and then the product didn't sell. So having all these pieces linked together is very important, because you cannot go into one direction with your product and then the others go in another direction. So really have to come together. And I completely agree. It's from the beginning, from the idea perspective until taking care of it, making sure that you have these enhancements, engaging continuously with the marketing team, with the sales team. So they are in the loop with everything that's happening. Also, the other part is always the missing part is the customer service part. So I've often been involved in these projects where they put together features and they created features, but the customer center didn't even know that those features were released. They didn't know what to talk about them when customers called in and said, "Oh, I want to enroll in this new product that you have," and they were like, "What product? We don't have anything like that."
I'm too lazy to type out a question, so I'm just gonna say it. One of the patterns that I've seen, especially in large organizations, is that agility comes through IT because it's about software development. This is, the where the Agile Manifesto and so forth speaks to the creation of software. And product owners typically are on the business side of organizations where there's this sort of default silos of business versus IT and many
Right.
more in many cases. But you do have this product owner role coming from business, but they're not well versed in the practice of agile because it's on the IT side where all of the workshops and the training and the scrum ceremonies and the cadence of agile behaviors takes place to get things rolling, and product owners are kind of left out of the loop or kind of partially included, and in a way, they're crucial to this product agility that you're talking about. How do you see that evolving? How do we do better in terms of getting product owners up to speed and kind of be champions of this way of working?
So I can tell you we're doing better than 10 years ago for sure. And I think we need to get better and better. So I think there is this, again, from a cultural perspective in the organization, there are organizations that basically that rupture between technology and business is kind of like a huge gap. But I also see some organizations that really feel the need to come together. And I think those user stories, how simple they are, what I've noticed, they bringing technology and business together. Because I just had a session today with the team, and as I was going through how you write a user story, I had the business for the first time saying, "Oh, wait a minute, I have to put my input in here because I know about that." And I said, "Yes, you're damn right. That's where your role is." So this is when I saw for the first time the business stepping in and and saying, "Oh, I really need to put my input in here."
I think the other thing, Tom, that we're seeing is that there's more and more pressure on organizations, for-profit, non-for-profit, governmental, to adapt to the very dynamic changing environment that we have. COVID aside, it was still changing because of the technology disruptors that are coming in, business models, both globalization and so on. So we're seeing even construction companies, last ones you think that should be more having to show agility are having to show agility. So we're getting this better understanding that all organizations need to become more agile, this idea of transformation, or to transform the way they do business, if they want to survive. So very much of a need, which has also happened in the last 10 years. And I guess to just end the final comment, and this is why Joanna and I wrote GenP and started New GenP, was try to get the message out that the organizations need to focus on products and do it in a more agile way in order to be successful to solve customers' problems and get that message out to organizations. This is not an IT problem. This is an organization, even can argue a societal problem, to get ourselves more agile. So before we get too more philosophical, I think the clock on the wall is saying time's up. I think Karen is saying time's up. She's about ready to pull the hook on us. So thank you very much again for giving us a moment to share our thoughts. Hopefully we can continue the discussion here or elsewhere. And now, Karen, thank you, and back to you to wrap up.
All right, thank you very much. That was great. Very much appreciate having you here with us tonight.